All right, so we need to configure on the server that the server is okay with receiving requests from different domains, right? In particular, the 4200 URL, we could be as specific as we want, or we could broaden it and say, hey, we can receive queries from anywhere. So let's do that. Let's just configure a server-side configuration saying that we're okay with receiving requests from specifically 4200, right? But you can be as specific as you want. So we can do that by going to our server, our Node.js server. So this is here's our Node.js server. There's our service. Here's our server. There it is. And what we're going to do here is right after the body parser, we know that we have an instance of Express. Right? We can just copy and paste that in there. And that says this is receiving that if in the headers comes in an access control allow origin, right? We're going to respond saying, yes, we accept response from queries from 4200. You can be specific, from a particular AWS or from a particular Heroku domain. We also saying that we accept get, we accept post, we accept put, we accept delete. You can be as narrow or as broad as you want, what verbs you accept or not. Okay? If it's successful, it'll just pass it through, right? Otherwise, it won't let it through. So it only accepts from 4200 in this case. Right? So let's restart the server. To restart the server, I can stop it or just click on restart over here. And it says, are you sure you want to stop it and you want to restart it? I'm going to say, don't bother me. Always restart it. So I'm going to say, yes, stop and rerun. And don't ask me again. So the server has restarted in debug mode. So now let's start it again. Let's try it again. So let's refresh. And we'll do, again, Dan, and Dan. And click on register. Keep going. OK, notice that now I made it to the server. Right, made it to the server. The body we have Dan and Dan, right? And we're going to say we're going to put a breakpoint right there. So let's continue. So inserted the new user. We can see presumably here we can in the Mongo client we can do a find, and indeed we have Dan as a new user. And then if we continue from the server, let's remove these breakpoints and continue. It goes back to the client, and on the client, I guess we didn't have a breakpoint. We didn't have a breakpoint, but notice that it navigated to the profile. See that? Right? Now, what would the profile show? Right? Notice that in the profile/profile, we didn't pass any arguments. We didn't pass. We could have, right? We get back the user that was just created. We know their ID. We could pass this as an argument to the profile and then fetch that user to render here. Yes. But instead what we want to do is do that all on the server side, right? We want to log them in. We want to make sure that it remembers that this is the last user who just registered. It's the same user, okay? So let's do that. So let's store the current user in the session. So to do that, on the server side, what we can do is that when we create the user, we can put the user in the current session. Right, just like we played around with last week, that we could put anything on the session. Well, we could just put this user as the current user. Right? So let's do that. Let's. I believe we had already configured Express session. Let's see, where do we have it? I think, yeah, there we go. We had required the Express session. We had already initialized it with some secret. And then we have played around with storing things in the session, retrieving things from the session. We have played around with that. So if you want, you can review that. But we're going to use the same technique we used last week to enhance this a little bit. So now that we added the user to the database, we can confidently add them to the session. We can say request.session. And then we're gonna. It's a map. The session is just a map, and we're gonna put in the current user. We're gonna put user. We're putting the whole user we just created in the database. We're gonna put them in the session, right? So next time, if you ask me for profile information, I can always fetch the profile information from the session. Make sense? All right. All right, so if that's true, we're going to have to have another endpoint over here, right? That perhaps is something like app.get. I want the current profile. It says I'm at the profile page, right? I need the profile information of who's currently logged in. Yes? So this is going to be mapped to profile here. Okay? And so what does profile do? It's just going to say function profile. Here's the request and response. We can just say what? We can just return. We can say respond, send back whatever is in the session mapped to the current user. Make sense? Right? I just stored them in there. And that's what I'm going to retrieve from my profile page. For my profile page, that's what I'm going to hit. So I think that's all we need on the server side. Let's go on the client side. What I'd like to be able to do that now that I'm at the profile page should go back to the server and say, hey, server, I'm at the profile page. I need the current user. Okay? So we'll need the client version of getting the profile. Yes? All right, so let's do that. On the client side, on the user service, that's not it. No. Angular, there we go. Here's our user client. We're going to create another endpoint here. We're going to say profile. And this is going to return what? It's going to say return fetch /API/profile. Right? Maybe actually parse it out, and because it's going to come back as a JSON object. So we'll do that here. We'll say then. And this is going to be, hopefully, a little response. And we're just going to return the response.json. All right. So on the profile page, in the profile component, we can use that service, right? We can use that service. So let's inject it. So it's private service, user service, right? So when we navigate here on init, we can say this dot service dot profile dot then, and hopefully this is the user, the actual user. And what are we going to do with the user? We're going to assign it to a local user. This user. Right, this is coming from the server. Now that it's mapped on the template. The template, we already are displaying user.first name, user.last name. So if we refresh this, it's giving me some errors. Let me see what's going on here. Console. In promise, blah, blah, blah. Profile. Let me just return this. Let me see without parsing this. Oh, well, that would help, right? Thank you. HTTP local / localhost : 4000. There we go. Still are unexpected and what's the network saying? If I just say profile, localhost 4000 /API profile. It's not coming back. Ooh, okay, what do I have on the server? Profile, put a breakpoint here. Are we even hitting this? API profile. Okay, so we're there. Session. Oh, you know what? Every time we restart the server, the session is killed. So there's actually nobody registered. Okay, it doesn't remember anything from the previous time, right? So this will come back as an empty object. So let's register somebody else. Let's see. So we'll hopefully we'll get a create user and then a profile. So let's go first to the register. So this is 42,000, 42,000, and let's go to register. Okay, so we're Dan, A, B, C, D, E, Ed, and Ed. Register, okay, so we're creating the user. Okay, so we're looking for the profile. Right, we continue. And still nothing. Console, we got one less error. Register. Okay, it's coming back. Do we have session? Session, cookie. What's in the session? Let's see. Request session, cookie, save. Reload, save, request. I don't see a user in there. Why are you not in there? Interesting. We did put it in there, right? Request.session, current user, equal user. And this is request.session, current user, current user. Cookie, proto, save, reload, ID. Let's make sure it's the same. It's the same ID. Remember that we were having trouble with that. Let's try now with Ed. Let's log out, register. Frank. Register. Continue. All right. Let's put a breakpoint right here. Request session. There's our session, and the ID is what is it? LMJM. Let's step through just once. Request session, current user. There it is. Oh, look at this. Okay, this current user. Okay, what it's storing is the raw data that's coming back from the database, right? So it's not actually storing the user. So notice that we have here errors is new, proto this. So it's more than just the actual data, the new user that was inserted. This is very common in object relational mapping objects. JPA does the same thing. It wraps your data models with its own data model, and that's what it says. Notice that this is the actual data, but it wrapped it with its other object, and then when you want to use it as a regular object, it unwraps it. But apparently, it looks like it's storing the raw data in there. Okay, so I do want to remember if this cookie LMJM. Okay. Oh, it's looks like a different cookie. Oh, it's a different cookie. ID. All right. We need to fix that. All right. I need to debug that. So for now, let's have the profile return that one user that we